Now, what was it I said about gravity last year?
Screw space work. I want to live.
Yeah, that applies for Interstellar, too. Interstellar is the latest epic from director Christopher Nolan, the man behind Memento, Inception, and the Dark Knight trilogy. It stars Matthew McConaughey as Cooper, a former pilot who is now a farmer and a father. Earth is dying, and food supplies are getting very scarce. So Cooper stumbles upon a secret facility, a secret NASA facility, where a scientist, Professor Brand, played by Michael Caine, has an idea of how the Earth can be saved. See, a wormhole is discovered near Saturn, and he believes that going in there, we could find a new inhabitable world in which the human race can immigrate to, thus, like, basically leaving Earth and going to a new home. Now, there's a lot that I like in Interstellar. I mean, of course, with all Christopher Nolan movies. For one, it's got some great performances from your leads like Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, and Michael Caine. Matthew McConaughey was a little difficult to understand sometimes because he's talking like this, because he's Matthew McConaughey, alright. And then it had to do with some of the sound mixing. His performance, especially when he has to act alongside the girl who plays his daughter, Murph, it's really powerful, and you feel for this guy having to leave this planet, leave his daughter behind, probably for the rest of her life, just to save the world. The other actors are really good. Jessica Chastain and Michael Caine are great. Anne Hathaway is good, but she's just playing Anne Hathaway. Nothing too special about her performance. And then there's some other actors who pop up in and out that I won't spoil, but they're great too. It's got a really great score by Hans Zimmer. The first score I've heard in a while that uses an organ, which fits the look of this movie and the tone. Sometimes it can be very beautiful, other times it can be haunting, but it fits the space tone. And the cinematography is beautiful. Wally Pfister, Nolan's regular cinematographer, didn't do this movie because he was directing Transcendence, which I've heard was dog shit. So the cinematographer for Her was hired, and he has an eye for shooting this movie, especially when using the IMAX cameras, because if there's one thing that I appreciate Nolan for doing, it's utilizing the IMAX cameras more than 3D, because I feel like IMAX is more of the way to go. In terms of movies on this scale, more than 3D has ever been. It's one of those movies that you have to see in IMAX, because it will just blow your mind. More than his Dark Knight movies, this is the film that utilizes the IMAX technology to its fullest potential, even with the CGI space shots. Now, admittedly, there were some things that I wasn't so crazy about. This movie, I feel like it's trying to be the next 2001, which is an impossible task because 2001 is really ambitious. It's almost suicidal to try to recreate it. But I give props for Nolan for at least attempting to make it on this level. Another problem with that is that it is so ambitious with the way it's filmed and the whole plot of the movie that you ultimately kind of get lost in what's going on. In the third act, I won't spoil what happens, but there's a character that pops up that does something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you're just kind of like, wait, what's going on? Because admittedly in 2001, the third act is confusing, but it's more like a visual acid trip. This is trying to make a statement, which I don't really want to spoil, but it doesn't really flesh out. You get confused in the third act. I also had a problem with some of the dialogue, and this is sort of a problem I've seen with Nolan on occasion. Some of the dialogue feels like exposition or some great speech about something, rather than sounding like natural conversations between characters. And yet, despite the dialogue sounding a lot like exposition, there are some things in this movie that aren't really explained. Like, why is Earth dying? Why are all the food sources diminishing? Why are all these dust storms happening? There's just a lot that doesn't get explained, which I feel are major things that should have been touched upon that sadly don't. There are some other things that the movie just doesn't explain that sound important, but I don't want to go into it because that would be spoiler territory. Though I will say there is something at the end that Matthew McConaughey's character does that doesn't seem right, considering what the first act of the movie has him going through. But I won't spoil it. But the biggest problem I have with this movie is that it is way too long. 2 hours and 49 minutes is too long for a movie that's trying to be this ambitious and this grand in scale. The pacing was just a mess, especially in the third act. I felt like they could have cut out at least 45 minutes of this movie. Make it a 2-hour movie. That would have been fine. But 2 hours and 49 minutes, almost 3 hours long, it's just way too long for this kind of movie. Now, it sounds like I'm really harsh on this movie, but admittedly, I'm not. I pointed out some great moments in it, and as you can tell, I'm wearing an Interstellar t-shirt, so I definitely don't think it's a bad movie. It's just, I don't think it's the masterpiece that everyone was hoping it was, including myself. But it's still filled with great performances, a fantastic Hans Zimmer score, beautiful cinematography. I think the movie is really good, but it's not great. It's more of a visual experience, I feel, and something you have to see in IMAX. You have no excuse not to see Interstellar in IMAX, as my t-shirt suggests. And that's my review for Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Leave a comment, tell me what you thought of the movie, subscribe to my channel for more stuff in the future. Check out my video blog channel, AlexG8462. You can find links to my Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and Instagram accounts on this YouTube page. Go check me out at letterboxd.com under the name Mr. Robinson, as well as my written reviews on Geeked Out Nation. Share me with your friends and tell them about me. This is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. I'll see you guys later.